Damn it! Seeing the sacred drum, Heavenly Sovereign block the attack for him, Lin Dong could no longer keep his composure. The power of heaven and earth, which had been under his control, surged into the Supreme Sea in an instant. At this moment, the Supreme Sea transformed into an ocean of heavenly and earthly power, and under the intense pressure of this power, there was no sign of the blackness on the sacred drum, Heavenly Sovereign's heavenly soul dissipating. It seems that our fate together isn't meant to be. A hoarse voice came from the completely darkened heavenly soul of the sacred drum, Heavenly Sovereign, uttering the last few words. The evil energy in this hair is unusual. It's the power of the primordial evil ancestor from the extraterritorial evil clan. Now I finally understand the origins of the hair, Heavenly Emperor. Your name is Lin Dong, right? Although you've only learned a part of my inheritance, make sure to cherish this method. The voice of the sacred drum, Heavenly Sovereign, finally disappeared completely, and his heavenly soul, along with that beautiful strand of magic hair, vanished into thin air. All that remained was a dazed Lin Dong. 5 seconds. Meanwhile, far in the distance, the hair Heavenly Emperor stared grimly in Lin Dong's direction, unable to believe that Lin Dong had survived after being struck by one of his ancient evil hairs. It must be that damn sacred drum elder. Hair Heavenly Emperor roared in madness. But as he yelled, Lin Dong, in the distance, emitted a chilling, killing intent. From beneath Lin Dong, a massive spatial drum membrane, over 1,000 feet in diameter, appeared. Lin Dong's palm slammed onto this membrane. Boom, boom, boom. The war drums rang out, each beat filled with a sense of carnage, and there was only one reason for this. The hair Heavenly Emperor could see it. Thousands of heavenly soldiers leapt into the sky, gathering in the horizon to form a massive giant, towering over 100,000 feet tall. With a single step, this giant warrior moved directly in front of the hair Heavenly Emperor, extending a hand nearly 10,000 feet long, so massive that it enveloped the heavens and the earth, trapping the fleeing hair Heavenly Emperor inside. You think you can trap me, the Emperor? You're delusional. The hair Heavenly Emperor sneered from within the giant's hand, but he soon sensed something was wrong. His expression changed drastically, but it was already too late. A wildly violent wave of energy erupted from the body of the giant warrior. This terrifying fluctuation caused the space within 1,000 miles to warp, and then, an earth-shattering explosion unfolded, shaking the heavens and the earth. The explosion was so powerful it could rival the self-detonation of a heavenly supreme powerhouse. The shockwave formed an energy wall thousands of feet high, crushing the massive drum beneath it into pieces, while the shockwave continued to sweep outward. The explosion's extreme heat caused the sea in the center of this continent to be enveloped in thick steam. As the steam gradually dissipated, the sea level across millions of miles had dropped by thousands of meters, with the missing water having been evaporated in the blast. The destructive force of the explosion was immense, and it even created a deep crater hundreds of thousands of feet wide in the ground beneath the sea. The hair Heavenly Emperor's aura completely vanished between heaven and earth. In such a terrifying explosion, there was no way he could have survived. All that remained was Lin Dong, standing tall in the sky, his gaze cold and indifferent. Suddenly, Lin Dong spat out a mouthful of blood. Even though the explosion occurred within the realm he controlled, it still caused some backlash. Buzz. A massive grand hall of Xun'er shot out from within Lin Dong's body. Within it, Ling Qingzhu's graceful figure leapt out and appeared beside him. How are you? Ling Qingzhu asked quickly, seeing the blood dripping from Lin Dong's mouth. I'm fine. Lin Dong waved his hand, signaling that he was okay. However, from his expression, Ling Qingzhu could tell that he felt helpless. Yes, the sacred drum Heavenly Sovereign had given his all to help Lin Dong, but in the end, it still ended in such a way. Lin Dong had only received part of his inheritance. However, perhaps he could still gain the rest later from Xiaoyan, though it was just a possibility. Ling Qingzhu glanced at the ruined continent. If she hadn't taken refuge in the Xun'er Palace earlier, she probably wouldn't have survived such a catastrophic shockwave. Even someone at her supreme level might not have been able to preserve her life in such a destructive impact. Swish. Once again, two figures soared out from the Xun'er palace. They were none other than Xiao and Fenyunzi. As they gazed at the devastated land before them, even Fenyunzi, with his extensive experience, found it hard to imagine the scale of the battle that could have caused such destruction. It must have been a battle on the level of a heavenly supreme, at the very least. Had Lin Dong just fought against a heavenly supreme level expert? And from the looks of it, the outcome didn't seem too bad. How is Xiao Yin? Lin Dong asked as he looked at Xiao, who had come flying over. He should have comprehended something. There's no sign of him breaking through yet, Xiao replied. He then scanned the surroundings and asked, "What about here?" The Heavenly Emperor, who was sealed by the sacred drum Heavenly Sovereign, has already been killed by me, Lin Dong said. Upon hearing this, Fenyunzi was once again shaken. He hadn't expected Lin Dong to actually wipe out a mid-stage Heavenly Emperor at the peak of their power. "Let's go. There's nothing left to stay for here," Lin Dong said, waving towards the Xun'er palace in the distance. The palace quickly shrank and once again entered Lin Dong's body. With that, Lin Dong and his group set off in search of the right direction, leaving the continent. Before they left, Lin Dong gave a slight bow to the land. This was for the sacred drum Heavenly Sovereign. Lin Dong knew that the sacred drum Heavenly Sovereign had saved his life, and he had decided that from now on, he would inherit the will of the sacred drum Heavenly Sovereign and do his part to protect the billions of lives in the world. However, just a few minutes after Lin Dong left the continent, two figures appeared as if by ghostly means in a certain part of the now-wrecked land. These two individuals were an old man and a young man. If Lin Dong had been there, he would have been shocked to recognize the old man. He was none other than Ice Firmament, the Grand Elder of the Ice Spirit clan. The other young man was unfamiliar to him. Dressed in a blue dragon robe, with two dragon-patterned wooden gourds hanging from his waist, he had long white hair. But this white hair wasn't the result of old age. It looked natural. Together with his handsome face, it made for a striking appearance. If I'm not mistaken, the esteemed elder before me is the Grand Elder of the Ice Spirit clan. On equal standing with the clan leader, the young man said, a faint smile on his face. His tone was polite, as he was well aware of Ice Firmament's status. "You managed to guess my identity? Very well, then I'll try to guess yours," Ice Firmament said with a smile, surveying the young man for several seconds. "Blue robe, white hair, your strength, and the insignia at your waist." Ice Firmament continued, smiling. "If I'm correct, you must be Long Luzi of the True Dragon clan." "Heh, you're right. I am Long Luzi. It's truly an honor to meet the former clan leader and current Grand Elder of the Ice Spirit clan," the young man, Long Luzi, replied, acknowledging his identity with a smile. "I've heard of Long Luzi, the most outstanding of the younger generation in the True Dragon clan. You reached the Heavenly Supreme stage 10 years ago. Seeing you today, you truly live up to your reputation. It seems the next clan leader of the True Dragon clan will surely be you," Ice Firmament said with a smile. "Elder Ice, you flatter me. I'm just not as talented as others in the clan. There are many younger members with more talent than I. This title of first doesn't belong to me. Long Luzi, you are indeed humble. You're someone worth cultivating." "I'm truly not worthy," Long Luzi replied with a smile, then shifted the topic. "What I'm curious about is, why is Elder Ice here? I saw you earlier blocking a strike for Lin Dong, but you failed." "Heh, I did fail earlier. That Heavenly Emperor was quite insidious. He gathered all his power into a single, inconspicuous hair. Had Lin Dong been hit, the consequences would have been unimaginable," Ice Firmament said. "Elder Ice, you seem very concerned about Lin Dong's safety?" Long Luzi asked curiously. "I heard that he was once kicked out of the Ice Spirit clan by you." "That's true. I did expel him," Ice Firmament replied. "But the Ice Spirit clan is in a downward spiral now. We need someone to inject some vitality into the clan." Ice Firmament said this openly because, with the True Dragon clan being a top-tier divine clan, there was no need for secrecy. After speaking, Ice Firmament glanced at Long Luzi and said, "So, you're here by coincidence? I was ordered by my father to keep an eye on Lin Dong for a while, Long Luzi said without hesitation, admitting to his mission. Keep an eye on him, for a while? Ice Firmament asked in confusion. He knew Long Luzi's father was the clan leader of the True Dragon Clan, one of the few heavenly supremes at the late stage in the Great Thousand Worlds. But Ice Firmament couldn't figure out what the True Dragon Clan was up to. The movements of the extraterritorial evil clan have become more frequent. Both the True Dragon Clan and the True Phoenix Clan believe we should focus on some of the new strong figures emerging in the Great Thousand Worlds and the lower dimensions. When the older generation of experts falls, these young ones may become the new line of defense, Long Luzi explained. Right now, there are 7 young experts in the Great Thousand Worlds being watched by the True Dragon and True Phoenix clans. They are considered to have the potential to reach the mid to late Heavenly Supreme stage. Are they all? Bing Sangqiong asked. Sorry, Elder Bing, I can't provide any more details. To be honest, I only know 2 of the 7, Long Luzi said. He then added one final remark to Bing Sangqiong before the space in front of him twisted, and his figure slowly vanished. Please don't take anything I said to heart today, and I won't take anything you said to heart either, Long Luzi finished, already gone. Bing Sangqiong remained behind, furrowing his brows for a moment, but soon his expression softened into a smile. It seemed he had realized something. With a slight chuckle, he also twisted space and left the edge of this desolate place. Speaking of which, wandering and calculating were among the greatest interests of the primordial evil ancestor. He didn't enjoy going home much because it was boring there, and the people at home were even more boring. How boring? For example, the 6,000 branches of the evil clan under his command spent their days doing the same thing. Attacking lower dimensions here, attacking lower dimensions there. The rest of the time, they fought among themselves, comparing achievements. Another reason the evil ancestor didn't like going home was because every time his 6,000 branches did something, they loved to spread the news, even coming to report their battle results. Some of these branches would frequently come to ask him what to do next. For these branches, the evil ancestor would always scold them, berating them for lacking independent thought and action. If I were gone, would you all collapse? What a bunch of mindless fools. No fun at all. In short, frustrating. The evil ancestor had been out of the outer world for several years now. During this time, he had blocked contact with his clan. He probably didn't care what changes occurred within the clan. If something catastrophic happened, he'd think, not my problem. As long as I'm happy, who cares? Of course, the evil ancestor didn't come alone. Before leaving, he had specifically brought someone along. However, after taking him along, the evil ancestor immediately regretted it. Somewhere in the lower world, in the endless void of a black hole, a small boat drifted aimlessly. On it were 2 people. One was an old man with black hair that hung down nearly half a meter, sleek and smooth, giving off an elegant vibe. The other was a young man. Both were dressed entirely in black, and there was almost no fluctuation in their energy. Evil ancestor, of the 6,000 branches, nearly 2,000 have already suspended their missions to conquer lower dimensions in order to search for you. They are all looking for you, the man who had been brought along said, trying to persuade the evil ancestor to return to the evil clan. Why the hurry? I'm not a child. Think about it. Who in the entire outer world is older than me? Even the demon ancestor and the others are my juniors, the evil ancestor replied. Hearing this, the man glanced at the evil ancestor. His eyes clearly conveyed one message. You're still a child. But, you've been gone for 4 years. Don't you need to report your situation to the clan? The man asked. No need. Listen to me, and don't report anything. If I get located, I'll leave you behind, the evil ancestor warned him, then raised an eyebrow, noticing something on the man's hand. It appeared to be a black ring. What's that? The evil ancestor asked, sensing a strange fluctuation coming from the ring. A messaging ring, the man answered honestly, then quickly realized something was wrong. He removed the ring and handed it to the evil ancestor. It's a one-way messaging ring. It only receives messages and can't send them. You don't need to worry about being located because of it. I knew it. You've been following me around, yet you know everything about the clan. Turns out you've got one of these things. Hand it over, the evil ancestor said, preparing to crush the ring. He found such things annoying. Wait, evil ancestor, it's better if you at least take a look at the message, the man suggested. Important? Urgent? The evil ancestor looked at the ring in his hand, raising an eyebrow. Pretty much, the man replied. What the man hadn't expected was that when the evil ancestor heard it was an urgent message, his expression lit up with excitement, as if he had just received long-awaited news. Has the outer world been taken over by the great thousand worlds? The evil ancestor exclaimed, slapping his thigh. That's great. Finally, I'll be free. Well, it's a bit more serious than that. The man, seeing the evil ancestor's excited expression, wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Is it more severe than the extraterritorial evil clan being taken over? Upon hearing the words, the primordial evil ancestor was shaken and immediately activated the messaging ring. Whoosh! As soon as the messaging ring was activated, a blood-red message appeared. Big brother, I'm your second brother, Slaughter Ancestor. Hurry and escape. Don't look back. Don't come back. Remember, don't come back. Don't come back. Don't come back. Our outer world has been occupied by the great thousand worlds. Our third brother, Demon Ancestor, has been surrounded and killed. Our extraterritorial clan has been annihilated. If you return, you'll fall right into their trap. You are the last ember of our clan. I won't say more. They're coming for us. Remember, don't come back. Don't come back. Don't come back. Escape as far as you can. Don't come back. Looking at the message before him, the evil ancestor's eyes immediately filled with murderous intent. He let out an angry roar. Damn the great thousand worlds. How dare they annihilate my clan? We're going back. We'll fight them. The evil ancestor grabbed the other person and immediately activated the floating boat, charging toward the outer world at the speed of 1,000,000 miles in an instant. Seeing the enraged evil ancestor, the person immediately tried to stop him. Evil ancestor, we absolutely can't go back. We'll walk right into their trap. To hell with it. We'll kill as many as we can. The evil ancestor was consumed by fury and didn't care about the consequences. So, the evil ancestor dragged the other person and charged back toward the outer world, billions of miles away. About an hour later, they finally entered the territory of the outer world. However, when the evil ancestor burst into that territory, his pupils instantly contracted, and he immediately turned the boat around, speeding away in the opposite direction. The reason was that the outer world looked exactly the same as it had before, with no signs of any disturbance. Even the demon soldiers patrolling the outskirts were continuing their rounds. Exhausted, the evil ancestor retreated to a distance of 1,000,000,000 miles from the outer world, where he immediately began scolding the other person. So, you dare to deceive me? I'll punish you. Evil ancestor, I didn't deceive you, the person explained. The people you saw just now were actually from the great thousand worlds, pretending to be us. They were trying to lure you back. Still lying to me. Speak. What's going on? The evil ancestor barked. It was Slaughter Ancestor's idea. He wanted to trick you into coming back, the person admitted. No way. The evil ancestor flatly rejected. He looked at the person with suspicion and asked, Don't you think there's something wrong with our clan? The person silently glanced at the evil ancestor, as if saying, Actually, you're the one who's crazy. Evil ancestor, the other two ancestors did this for your own good, the person said. Don't you remember what happened tens of thousands of years ago? Upon hearing these words, the evil ancestor's expression changed slightly, and his gaze grew more serious. He recalled that tens of thousands of years ago, when he had gone out for a trip, he unexpectedly wandered into the great thousand worlds, where he encountered a lesser dominator-level expert. That person from the great thousand worlds was a fanatical warrior, and they fought to a standstill, leaving hundreds of continents destroyed along the way. The battle could have been settled, but the evil ancestor didn't expect that the great thousand worlds expert would try to take them both down in a final blow. It was only because his brother, Demon Ancestor, suddenly arrived that he narrowly escaped. The great thousand worlds expert self-destructed, and the evil ancestor was severely injured. In the end, he was lucky to have survived, barely escaping with his life. "Fine, I'll go back with you," the primordial evil ancestor finally relented. The person sighed with relief. Had he known it would be this easy to convince the evil ancestor, he wouldn't have gone through the trouble of helping Slaughter Ancestor concoct such a massive lie about the clan's destruction. Just then, the evil ancestor's brow twitched, as if something had pricked his head. He looked up and saw a black strand of hair fall from his head. The hair turned white at a visible speed, its energy completely drained. Looking at the falling, withered strand of hair, the evil ancestor seemed to remember something. "What happened, evil ancestor?" the person asked. "I lost a strand of hair," the evil ancestor replied indifferently, then stretched out his hand and said, "Give me some paper and ink." "You want what?" the person asked, puzzled. "I need to calculate," the evil ancestor answered with a faint tone. "Oh." The person grasped their palm in the air, and a surge of energy gathered in the space. Soon, a piece of paper about 1/2 meter in size and an ink brush with an inkstone materialized, all formed purely from condensed energy. In the Great Thousand Worlds, this was similar to the manifestation of the laws of heaven and earth by an Earth Supreme expert, though no Earth Supreme would ever use their power to condense such items as paper, ink, and a brush. "Here." The person handed the paper, brush, and inkstone to the evil ancestor, then conjured a desk and placed it on the small boat. The evil ancestor spread the paper on the desk and picked up the ink brush. Dipping it in ink, he wrote some symbols. 1 + 1 equals. "How much does this equal in mathematics?" The evil ancestor paused at the equal sign and turned to ask the person. 2. The person answered without thinking. There could hardly be any other answer. "Does it equal 3, 5, 7, 100? Is that all right?" the evil ancestor asked. "Master, but this is mathematics." The person was taken aback by the evil ancestor's words. "Yes, but this time, let's avoid using positive numbers." The evil ancestor smiled when he saw the person's confusion, then added a number after the 1 + 1 equals equation. -1000. "It's done." After finishing the equation, the evil ancestor placed the brush down and then placed the strand of hair he had dropped onto the paper. What happened next was so unbelievable that the person could hardly believe their eyes. The strand of hair, once dry and yellowed, suddenly began to turn black again, as if regaining its former softness and vitality. Life surged back into the hair, and it was as though time was rewinding. In reality, it was time itself being reversed. Buzz. Next, the restored black hair emitted a dark light, which then surged into the evil ancestor's body. It then shot out again, forming a 1/2 meter wide light screen in front of the evil ancestor. The world within the light screen was not dark. It displayed countless continents and vast seas. This place was the edge of the Great Thousand Worlds, and it was also the continent where Lin Dong had stayed not long ago. There, Lin Dong had received part of the sacred drum Heavenly Sovereign's legacy, and it was where the Hair Heavenly Emperor had been slain. "They've arrived," the evil ancestor said lightly. In the light screen, a massive teleportation array appeared, from which 5 figures emerged, Lin Dong and his group. What followed was Lin Dong striking the sacred drum to encounter the sacred drum Heavenly Sovereign, then releasing the Hair Heavenly Emperor, leading to a battle that shook the heavens. All of this unfolded before the eyes of the evil ancestor and the person. "Evil ancestor, what is this?" the person asked after watching the footage. "This is a strand of my hair," the evil ancestor said as he picked up his hair and pointed at the image of the Hair Heavenly Emperor on the screen. "Thousands of years ago, I did not come to the Great Thousand Worlds without purpose. In fact, I came here to kill someone." "Who did you want to kill?" the person asked. "I wanted to kill this person." The evil ancestor pointed to the image of the sacred drum, Heavenly Sovereign's remnant figure on the screen. "I planned to erase him while he was still a mere ant, as he followed one of the 12 great Tao of the Great Thousand Worlds, the Tao of the sacred drum. But at that time, I was stopped by a supreme expert of the Great Thousand Worlds and could only leave a strand of hair behind, which led 4 heavenly emperors to hunt down this person. The Tao of the Sacred Drum? I've heard of it, but didn't that person die? The person asked. He did not die. He's still alive. The evil ancestor pointed at Lin Dong's figure on the screen. The Tao of the Sacred Drum has been passed down, albeit only partially. But there's no guarantee that this person won't research other parts of it. His strength seems far weaker than that person from thousands of years ago. And even that person, despite being so powerful, ultimately met his demise. What is there to worry about? The person said dismissively. That's hard to say. Whether his talent is greater than that person from thousands of years ago, it's easy to tell. With that, the evil ancestor picked up the ink brush again and began writing on the paper. He wrote, 1 second plus 1 second equals. This time, the person didn't doubt the evil ancestor's actions, as he knew the evil ancestor seemed to control some kind of power that had surpassed the rules he understood. What the evil ancestor was doing was essentially redefining those rules, like changing the answer to 1 plus 1 into a different number, which he had already done. Even time itself had reversed. Terrifying. After thinking for a moment, the evil ancestor finally settled on an answer for the equation: a month. Next, the evil ancestor reached out and grabbed the words written on the paper. 1 second plus 1 second equals a month, and placed them on the screen in front of Lin Dong. Then, Lin Dong's time began to pass at a speed of 1 month per second. During this process, the evil ancestor watched Lin Dong's future unfold, seeing it stretch out over the next 30 years. Interesting, Lin Dong is quite interesting. When the evil ancestor saw Lin Dong after the 37 incident, the words that had once clung to Lin Dong completely dissipated. Under the rules of the highest order, the disappearance of these rules could only mean one thing. The person who had set these rules had either reached or was close to the same level of power as the one to whom the rules were applied. The evil ancestor smiled. He hadn't expected that this person would one day reach the same level as himself. Evil ancestor, should I kill him? The man asked. Sure, if you can kill him, I'll hand over the entire extraterritorial evil clan to you. The evil ancestor replied casually. The man understood the implication behind the evil ancestor's words. The evil ancestor had already realized that Lin Dong was not someone he could kill. After all, in the Great Thousand Worlds, there were two beings whose power was no less than his own. If he could use the rules to see Lin Dong's future, why couldn't these two? Logically, these two had also seen Lin Dong, just like the evil ancestor. And with that, Lin Dong was undoubtedly under their protection now. No way to kill him. The evil ancestor patted the man on the shoulder, then turned and led him toward the rift leading into the extraterritorial world. Only one sentence remained in the dark, void world they left behind. They have the Lesser Dominator stage. We have nothing to fear.